New Guinea man is part of this cycle of life, forming a passive partnership.
You see, the great prophecies of the Bible bring present-day events into focus.
Operated by missionary pilots, this plane carries personnel and supplies.
Hello and welcome to South Pacific Classics. I'm Alan Lindsay. If you're watching the program for the first time, this is a series which presents archival footage of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in action across the South Pacific region. We've enjoyed bringing you short films focusing on locations as various as the misty highlands of Papua New Guinea, the coral archipelago of Kiribati, and the bustling cities of Australia. All of these were shot on 16mm film, but have been transferred to digital format so that we can share these historical gems with you. The first film we'll be seeing in this show focuses on the medical work of the Adventist Church in the Solomon Islands, in particular, the island of Malaita. Historically, Malaita was regarded by Europeans as a dangerous location. From the mid-1800s to the early 1900s, a number of Catholic and Protestant missionaries were killed by the locals. Even after the Second World War, the British colonial administration had difficulties in Malaita with armed independence movements. The film we're about to see was produced the year after the Solomon Islands gained independence in 1978. It takes us on a tour through the thriving Atoifi Hospital and Nursing College. And just a warning, this film contains some graphic images of medical procedures. This is Big Sick Anytime.
The lush green foliage of a tropical jungle adorned with brilliant flowers. The peaceful Pacific lapping sun-kissed sandy beaches. Sunlight dancing on crystal streams. Children sharing endless hours of playful enjoyment. The apparent carefree lifestyle of a tropical paradise. All give the illusion that here is a tranquil harbor of rest. But how divorced from reality this is as we take a close look at the location, the work, and the lives of the people affected by the Atoifi Adventist Hospital. The Atoifi Adventist Hospital is a 90-bed hospital which nestles in a jungle clearing on the rugged eastern coast of the island of Malaita, one of the largest of the Solomon Islands. From its vantage point on a mountainside 30 meters above sea level, it overlooks a small but picturesque harbor. Officially opened in 1966 by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the hospital was intended to play a major role in providing medical care on the eastern side of the island, where only a limited number of primitive and inadequately supplied health clinics were operating. Since a considerable proportion of Malaita's population of 60,000 lives on this side of the island, the task of reaching and providing medical care and health education to these primitive people is both difficult and challenging. Atoifi staff must use every means of transport available, including the hospital ship Famori, to reach the people. Each month, medical teams visit some 20 coastal and inland jungle clinics. The medical director often helps at these clinics when the local villages are examined for common diseases such as tuberculosis, malaria, and filariasis, while tropical ulcers, cuts and infections are treated on site. For generations, pain, discomfort and disease have remained their constant and inescapable companions. But since the introduction of an active community health education program, the people are learning that prevention is better than cure or death. Accordingly, the general health of the people is steadily improving. Patients who are too ill to remain in the village are transported by ship or canoe to the hospital for further treatment. Medical teams, which have become a vital extension of the hospital, walk for hours through winding, slippery tracks and frequently across rivers to conduct maternal and child welfare clinics in isolated villages scattered throughout the dense tropical jungle. Here, prenatal advice is given to expectant parents. The health of the villagers is checked, and immunization programs are kept up to date. The fact that the infant mortality rate is dropping demonstrates the effectiveness of a community health program. The influence of Atoifi Adventist Hospital continues to spread in ever-widening circles, affecting the lives and health of thousands of people. Initially, the hospital was approached with great caution, and the people were reluctant to try the new kind of medicine, for they were well satisfied with their traditional superstitious practices and custom medicine used by the devil priests and witch doctors, and often with tragic results. However, throughout the years, service given by the hospital staff has removed much of this superstition. Today, patients request medical care, for they now have confidence in the staff and know that they will receive the help they need. The people regard the hospital as their hospital, which was built for their benefit and the benefit of future generations. Patients walk to the hospital as best they can, or are carried, many hours sometimes, trekking for days through narrow, steep and slippery jungle tracks to seek medical attention. Others paddle their dugout canoes for great distances, often battling against high winds and rough seas. For those who arrive at the wharf but are too ill to walk, a stretcher is close at hand. All that remains is for the patient to be carried to the waiting tractor and trailer, which serves as an ambulance to transport patients to the hospital. To such a patient, even this means of transportation is better than walking, and he knows that he's only a few minutes away from the care of the hospital staff. Recently, a new lifeline was added to the hospital facilities. In 1973, an airstrip measuring 923 meters was reclaimed from heavily timbered swampland. The financing of the project was commenced by 2 volunteer student nurses who caught a vision of the benefits of having an airstrip and the future potential of the hospital. Our mission aircraft, the J.L. Tucker, which was donated to the Seventh-day Adventist Church by his Quiet Hour radio and TV program, enables volunteer surgical teams, patients and medical supplies to reach the hospital promptly. The journey from Atoifi to Honiara, which previously involved a 24-hour voyage by ship, now takes only 30 minutes. On arrival at the hospital, the patient enters the small and overcrowded outpatients department, where he provides the nurse with the necessary information before being taken into the doctor's consulting room. The outpatient department facilities are now most inadequate for the rapidly increasing number of patients seeking treatment. No longer is one doctor able to cope single-handed with 27,000 patients who come annually seeking for treatment. It is hoped that in the future, other doctors will follow the example of these volunteers who continue to accept the challenge of working in this busy mission hospital. At the present time, a volunteer laboratory technician from New Zealand is completing her 2nd year of service. An important part of her work is the training of a Solomon Islander to assist in the laboratory. In the absence of any resident dental officer on the island of Malaita, there are many in need of dental care. The services of volunteer Christian dentists bring relief from pain. It's planned that a new dental clinic will be included in the proposed extensions to the outpatients department. Non-medical volunteers such as builders, plumbers, engineers, mechanics, electricians and secretaries are also needed. Two of Malaita's greatest health problems are tuberculosis and malaria. General medical and surgical conditions are treated in the hospital, and children are cared for in a separate pediatric ward. It is the practice at Atoifi Hospital for prayer to be offered prior to the commencement of every general anesthetic administered. Because of the increasing number of surgical cases, the operating theatre has been enlarged to include an induction or anesthetic room, a larger operating theatre and a recovery room. The theatre facilities are being used more frequently by visiting specialist surgeons and anaesthetists from Australia, New Zealand and America, who happily volunteer their time and skills. One of the many benefits which come from emphasis placed on these surgical visits is that our Solomon Island doctors develop greater surgical skill in a wider variety of situations. It is natural that after years of continuous use, necessary pieces of equipment such as this 30-year-old autoclave will wear out and have to be replaced. Another museum piece is the diathermy machine. It took a number of years for the women to realize that it was safer for their babies to be born in hospital than in the custom birth houses, where they were supervised and assisted by only a young girl. The hospital now has 2 delivery rooms where mothers and infants can receive expert attention. If necessary, small, low-weight babies are cared for in the humidicrib until they're strong enough to maintain their normal body temperature and functions. The increased number of births provides excellent experience for the students undergoing their nursing training at the hospital. In context with the philosophy of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the hospital staff recognizes the importance of caring for the person as a whole, giving attention to the physical, mental, social, and spiritual aspects of his recovery and development. The hospital chaplain moves among the patients and staff to provide counsel, comfort, reassurance, spiritual guidance for those who feel their need. When selecting the site for the hospital, it was decided that there must be an adequate and safe supply of fresh water. It was later discovered that the river system provided potential for establishing a hydroelectricity plant. However, during the year, a number of dry spells occur when there's often insufficient water to keep the hydro plant operating. To cope with such an event, which sometimes occurs during surgery, there is a 35-year-old auxiliary diesel generator. However, this generator is now worn out and inadequate. As we compare the early medical missionary work launched in 1965 by Brian Dunn and his wife Valmy with the outreach program of the hospital today, we can see that under the blessing of God, amazing progress has been made. How grateful we are that the Dunns committed their lives in service to this island. And even though Brian's life was tragically cut short, the spirit in which he lived and died remains an important part of the character of this hospital and its staff. The Brian Dunn Memorial Tutorial Block is indeed a fitting monument to the youthful enthusiasm and quest for knowledge and understanding that characterized his service for God and mankind. From this school of nursing will graduate Christian young men and women who also possess the same urgent desire to dedicate their lives to the advancement of medical missionary work. As they devote their lives in service for God and humanity, their influence will extend across seas of superstition and will penetrate the deepest jungle to reach lives crippled by pain, disease, and ignorance. Each new life must be given the opportunity of health and a knowledge of his worth as a child of God. The Atoifi Adventist Hospital is vital to the health and welfare of the people it serves. With God's blessing and the tireless support of many interested people, the hospital will continue to do its work well.
Atoifi Adventist Hospital continues its work today. It is one of only 5 hospitals in the Solomon Islands and is registered by the government as an essential service provider to the 80,000 people of Malaita province. Services now include dental, psychiatry, pathology and radiology, as well as the established services we saw in the film. But Atoifi is still a small hospital with 90 beds and only 1 doctor on the payroll. Some services can only be provided by visiting specialists from overseas who volunteer their expertise. And despite some government assistance, Atoifi continues to depend largely on the generosity of the World Church and private donors. The Atoifi Adventist College of Nursing also continues, with around 20 nurses graduating every year from the 3-year course. The college is a vital source of nursing staff for the Solomon Islands and surrounding nations. South Pacific Classics will be back after the break.
Carries personnel and supplies.
Welcome back to South Pacific Classics. In this show, we've been looking through the lens of history at the work of the Adventist Church in the Solomon Islands. Today, Adventists make up about 11% of the population of the Solomons. That's about 60,000 people, with 42,000 people being baptized members. The Solomon Islands consists of around 1,000 islands, with 300 to 400 islands being inhabited. As you can appreciate, this makes transport and communications difficult, with locals making most of their inter-island trips by outboard powered dinghy. Solomon Islanders are a seafaring people, familiar with the moods and the resources of the ocean. The producers of the short black and white film we're about to see were very aware of this. The Canoe People Live Again appears to have been shot a decade or 2 prior to the film we saw earlier in the show. It takes an anthropological interest in the culture and the customs of the people of the Solomon Islands, focusing on the western region. European observers have not always been sympathetic to or even particularly interested in indigenous cultures, characterizing them wholesale as primitive superstition or devil worship. White missionaries were likely to see Christianity and Western culture as a single package. Thus, as they evangelized, they civilized. The fact that the indigenous religions of the Pacific are interwoven with music, art, medicine, and social customs made it more difficult for the European newcomers to discern between cultural expressions of spirit worship and cultural expressions that are more compatible with Christianity. Many of the older films in our archives express what we would now describe as colonial attitudes. The Canoe People Live Again, however, is a rare find in that the filmmakers demonstrate a genuine interest in and respect for the indigenous customs and technology of the Solomon Islands people. Enjoy.
In the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors crossed the Pacific to discover the lovely Solomon Islands. They searched the jungle streams for alluvial gold, but finding no great treasures departed, leaving the indigenous tribes to their primitive way of life. The seafaring Solomon Islanders were notorious for murderous inter-island raids in their giant war canoes. Some of these long, slim craft are yet to be found among the islands, relics of bygone, bloodthirsty days. While the war canoe is on the way out, however, the everyday utility model is still in much demand. Here, a canoe factory in the Western Solomons goes into production. Back in the rainforest, suitable trees have been felled and the trunks floated downriver to the village site. Axes and homemade adzes are used to rough the huge logs into shape. With infinite skill, they're hollowed out to a shell of even thickness. Bent wood ribs are bound into place for added strength. Finely carved paddles are brought to a smooth finish with a piece of dried shark skin. The lagoons and calm waterways of the islands are the highways of these saltwater people. They use their canoes for fishing or to commute among the islands. Here, canoes serve as water taxis as groups from scattered atolls attend an annual conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Marovo Lagoon, Western Solomons. These South Sea Islanders have a fine sense of music, and harmonious singing plays a big part in their social lives. No longer does the sight of a war canoe bring fear to the hearts of the people. For peace and goodwill are a way of life among the villagers of these palm-fringed South Sea lagoons.
They really get those canoes up to quite a speed, don't they? Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed delving into history together. It's been great to have your company. Don't forget to join us next time for more South Pacific Classics. God bless. I'll see you later.